Hi.
Hi,
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
we're doing great.
I'm good.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Good to see you
Good,
both.
good to
Yeah,
see you
yeah.
too. Thank you so much for coming here and joining us and talking to us about adoption activism because I know it's a topic dear to your heart, and you've been working on this area for a while, and a lot of us don't really know much in your community. So
Yes.
thank you for coming to educate us.
Of course. Thank you
Great.
so much for having me.
So I will start with your first question. With the first question here, briefly, how was your upbringing, and how did you meet your parents?
Yes. So I was adopted from Zhongshan, China, which is the southern province of China,
Mm.
in when I was about 10 months old. And as far as my adoption story goes, I was told that I was found on the side of a bridge and then brought to a hospital to address some medical concerns. And then I was adopted by my parents at 10 months, and I moved to Alexandria and was raised there, which is just outside of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I was transracially adopted, so my parents are white, and I have a brother who is adopted from Korea and a sister who is my parents' biological child.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's a little bit about
It's
my
a
upbringing.
global
Yeah.
community there.
Yes.
So why did you decide to, like, and when did you decide to be an adoption advocate? Because not a lot of people who have had the same experience as you have took this path on advocacy
Yeah.
about it.
I think that it really started when I entered the Pacific Miss Asian American pageant when I
Mhm.
was around 19, 20 years old. And I wanted my platform in that pageant to be intercultural understanding with an emphasis on transracial adoption and how my multicultural family very much shaped who I am and how I feel that a lot of the things I've learned through my family can help my community. And
Mhm.
so when I decided to make that my platform and I began educating myself, I started becoming more immersed in the adoption community. I mostly just joined the online forums, and I was able to link up with some adoptees in person as well and just learn about other people's experiences and learn about some of the issues facing the community. And just the more I learned about it, the more passionate I became about it. So
Yeah.
that's why I started to become more outspoken and share my voice, as both of you do as well.
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
No, that's impressive. I mean, we've talked before a little bit about the sense of belonging, like
Mm.
when you
mhm.
have found a particular community and something that's so personal to you with adoption. Did you feel that sense of belonging? Was it almost like a familial sort of connection, spreading your story and the lessons that you've learned?
Yes, absolutely. And it very much was that kind of instant connection. I
Mm.
feel that it was something that I didn't really know I was missing at the time.
Mm.
But when you connect with people who have gone through something so personal and so life changing like that, it really is like they understand you on a deeper level. Like they understand some really complex emotions that you've
Yeah.
lived through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so when you connect with people like that, it's just really, really special.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
I'm now thinking, like, if I was a parent about to adopt a child, what do you think most people don't know that they can learn before going into that process? As you're saying this, there's a lot to unpack because
yeah,
you just mentioned with with your one of your sibling who's from Korea, and another sibling who is biological child. There's a lot of emotions also for, like, those children coming up as you
Mhm.
get aware, as you become more aware of the
mm,
world. There's a lot of questions, and sometimes parents are not prepared for for those questions.
Yes.
yeah.
So what would you tell someone? What was your experience?
Yes, absolutely. I think that one of the main things that I tell adoptive parents who are maybe prospective or they have their child and are just looking to learn more is to listen to adult adoptees, just because when we grow up, because what a lot of people think about adoption, they think about like the babies, like the children that are being brought into the families. And of course, because that is the dominant narrative surrounding adoption, that's what you see most in media. But what I advise adoptive parents to do is listen to adult adoptees, because we are very much a result of our upbringing. So I think that the issues that we see now and that we are trying to work through are things that are instilled in us in childhood. So there's a lot, it's very difficult. And like, obviously I only have my lived experience in transracial adoption. And so domestic adoption has its own set of complexities. But I think that really embracing adult adoptee voices and learning about the issues facing the community will just help adoptive parents and prospective parents be a much stronger advocate for their child.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
And sort of segueing from there, we talk a lot about mental health. Particularly within the adoption community. Is there, or have you seen a growth or any sort of progression in terms of how people are treated, or how you sort of get your mind, like psychologically or emotionally, to sort of deal with these challenging situations? Do you feel like mental health is taken more seriously now, and it's easier to have these conversations than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago? Not to date, but
no, absolutely. No, that's such a good question. And it's really, really important, especially to our community where adopted children, and this is according to a statistic taken a few years ago. I'm not sure if a more recent study has been done, but it was, I believe in 2019, that a study was conducted that found adopted children are 3 times as likely to attempt suicide. So mental health is absolutely a huge problem in our community, just because a lot of these experiences are so isolating. And so I do think that there have been huge strides made, both in the adoptive community and in our society in general, in uplifting the importance of mental health. And so I do think that there have been major strides made. And as adoptees have grown up and our voices are being heard and we're pushing for legislation and all of that good stuff, we are definitely being considered, and our mental health is being more part of the forefront, as opposed to something that adoptive parents and the adoption industry and just the public in general didn't really understand was an issue. So as we raise awareness for the fact that it is an issue, I think that the education around it and the language that we're all able to use to discuss it is improving as well.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. You just mentioned legislation. Yes. Can you elaborate on that? Because I feel like that's something very important that we all need to know. So when the adoption communities are pushing for legislation like that, everyone is also pushing at the same time. What are those, and what can we do?
Yes. So one of the main things I fight for is adoptee rights. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize, which I didn't realize when I was first immersing myself in the community, is that there is a sizable population of, or a sizable percentage of the adoption community of adoptees that were brought to the United States and do not have citizenship. And there was a child citizenship law enacted and an amendment made, but that only affects children who were brought to the United States after 1985 that automatically receive citizenship. So anyone brought to the United States beforehand who did not have the proper paperwork done, which I believe is a fault of so many different aspects of the adoption industry. It's not just the parents. Of course, part of it is the parents, but it's not just them. It's a lot of different failures on a lot of different people's parts. And so they just don't have citizenship and are at risk for deportation. And at this point, it is just, I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, this is like, this country is all I know. I don't speak my native language. I was not immersed in my culture as a child, like, as much as I've tried to learn and grow and embrace that part of my identity. It's not the same as that being your home. And so adoptees that are deported there more often than not commit suicide, because it is just such a terrible toll on their mental health. And that's just not their home. Like, they're separated from their family, everyone they ever know and love. They're just like in this place that they have no connection to other than being born there. And it was not their choice to be brought to the United States either, or adopted. So it's just very tragic.
Yeah. Has anything changed about the law? Like, not.
Yes. So the Adoptee Citizenship Act has been passed on the House of Representatives floor. And so now they're just pushing to have it passed in the Senate. It's a bipartisan bill. It's garnered a lot of support. And this movie that came out, I believe it was last year, Blue Bayou, which has brought a lot of attention as well to this issue, has helped put that in the limelight. And so it's passed the House. And so we're just hoping to pass the Senate. And I think that the thing that people can do is write to their representatives and just push that this is something that we want to see done. It's something that should have been done a long time ago. This should not have been an issue. This was a lack of foresight. And whenever I tell people about this, they're surprised that this is an issue.
I was surprised the first time you told me, and I was like, oh my God, how can everybody know about that? So it's pushed, and it's because I cannot imagine, being adopted at a very young, like 10 months, like you mentioned, and then 30 years later, you're told that you don't belong where you've spent your entire life. And how that can, mess up your mental health. So like, you don't know anybody you're gonna go back to.
Exactly.
So it's a lot of issues, and I think it's important that we all take, responsibilities on taking care of one another.
Yes, exactly. And there are templates and petitions and ways that you can donate, all on Adoptees for Justice. If you just search Adoptees for Justice on social media or online, like, you'll find their website, and they have a whole page where you can look at all of those things. And if you search Adoptee Citizenship Act, you can learn more information about it. But regardless of your politics, it's just very much like it should be. It seems like a common sense issue.
Yeah, absolutely. It is for sure.
Kira, you also, well, I think to piggyback off of what Dean's saying, I think it may have been in response to, and you'd have to correct me, but there was something that happened in the media where a family, I guess, had said that we will adopt your babies or your children or something.
Yes.
And it was making rounds, but many people wouldn't pay attention to that. I mean, as much attention as they should. It obviously caught our eye, and you had made a statement on that. But we wanted you to delve in a little bit deeper into, because you used some language that was very, it made me think. It was almost startling and drastic in how easily we overlook how other people are affected, particularly people of color. And so, you said privileged voices in the adoption community, and there's a whole bunch of things regarding like profit over children. And so, can you speak on that just a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, you are correct. That was in response to "We Will Adopt Your Child" trending on Twitter in response to some of the legislation that was passed. And just speaking from my experience as an adoptee, I think that a problem arises when we as a society do not humanize adoptees. We do not humanize the children that we should be trying to help, and who should be at the forefront of this process, because they're the ones who have suffered the loss. And I think that when we do not humanize adoptees, or any marginalized community in general, like, that is when the harm comes, is when we don't think that those people are capable of deep thought and emotion. That's when harm comes to those communities. So my issue with that is that it was just very one-sided. It was very much like, we will adopt your child, like, we, the adoptive parents, like, we'll take the child, rather than thinking about what's best for the child. like what would have been best for them in that situation. It was very much like the way that a lot of the adoption system, I think a lot of the problems arise when it starts to prioritize profit over the child, the demand versus the actual need. And because there are many articles released about how international adoption has become a booming industry. And so there is a lot of unethical practices that arise because of it. And it's very problematic because there are human lives involved in this. It's not just a business.
I'm lost of words because these are the things that have been happening over the years, and we see it a lot. And there are humans involved in it because that child is losing. You are meeting a new family. You've lost the other. There's a lot of mental health problems going through all of these things that when you think more about the profit, not the actual child. You don't even get the opportunity to think about their mental well-being.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
How they need help. So, yeah.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. Yeah. And again, I mean, I would say most people don't have a ton of, well, maybe not
resources.
I know I didn't. Before I started speaking with you, Kira, I didn't know too much about the process of adoption and some of the more shady practices that go on, as you're talking about. So, like many things in life, when you sort of peel back the layers, it's far more complicated, and there's a lot more going on than what meets the eye, originally. But this is something that is, like you said, like it's a human rights issue as well. And it's sad to think about how many lives have been negatively impacted due to poor practices. But again, the conversations that we're having right now, hopefully this is, these are the many steps that we should be able to take to create more positive change.
Yes, absolutely. And it's complicated because that's the dominant narrative, right? Like that's the narrative everyone is fed of the adoptive parents rescuing the child. And now they're a big happy family and everything's fine now without and it's very much through the lens of the parents and the lens of the adoption agency, because that's where they benefit is from parents wanting children and children needing families. But it's so much more complicated than that. It is so not black and white. It's not just a positive experience. And so as someone who had what on paper is a perfect adoption experience, I love my family. It was ultimately like a positive thing for me. I still have a lot of problems, and there are still a lot of problems within and so that's something that I try to emphasize when I speak about these things, is that I'm not just an angry adoptee who's mad that I was adopted. No, I love my family very, very much. And I can still see the problems in the system in ways that it should be improved. And also, if someone had a negative experience, like if they didn't have the perfect on paper family experience, then they should also be listened to, and their voices shouldn't be devalued just because there's a stereotype of adoptees like having abandonment issues and anger issues and just like being angsty and having problems, because like those experiences are incredibly valid when you're looking at the system and you're looking at ways that it needs to be improved.
Do you feel that adoptees who have had positive experiences like yourself, do you feel like there was at one point a disconnect between themselves and then the people who didn't have a great experience?
Oh, absolutely. And we use a term for this in the adoption community, like this, exactly what you're describing as coming out of the fog, which is very much where the rose-colored lenses come off. And because when you've lived your whole life with that positive adoption narrative, you just like, oh, like I'm special, like my parents chose me, like all this good stuff. And like some of that can be good. I don't think that parents need to be hammering into their child like the tragedies of adoption when they're like growing up. That's not what I'm advocating for at all. But as I've grown up and become an adult and have sought my own education, I have realized that everything's not perfect. Everything wasn't great. And I have my own mental health problems because of that. Even as much as my parents, I believe they did the best that they could with what with what education they had at the time. Absolutely. And so it's just definitely, I lost my train of thought for a second. But it's definitely a kind of a world shattering moment, or I don't think that there was like a moment where I saw something and I was like, but I think gradually over time, as I was exposed to different narratives other than my own, and exposed to people that didn't just have this positive like viewpoint of this system. It was, I mean, it made everything more complicated, but it definitely opened my world. And I don't want to live in ignorance. I want to be able to serve my community. And how am I supposed to do that if I don't understand the community that I'm serving?
That's true.
So
That's true.
Absolutely. That's very true.
And one of our community members, the Michelle Madrid, we're shouting her out. She had a comment, if you can see, anger is one of the 5 stages of grief. We feel anger as adoptees because we are grieving loss.
Exactly. Yeah. And you need people you need your community, you need the resources to be able to deal with that. It's huge. It's I mean, like, to have that much loss into, like, I mean, as a transracial adoptee, just like having your homeland, your culture, your language, your family robbed from you at such a young age, and like learning to deal with that and understand that is really, really hard and incredibly isolating. And so that's where so many of the mental health issues arise, is just not having the resources to deal with it, and ignoring it doesn't make it go away. So
no. Ignoring things never really helps.
exactly.
At what age did you realize that you have that loss? Like, how did it come about? Like, when you realize, wait a minute, there is a whole identity of me, there's a whole culture and a whole thing that belongs to me that I can't reach.
I definitely felt it growing up without having the language to understand it or process it. I mean, it's just very much internalized. It's just very much part of me, of not feeling Chinese enough to fit in with any of the Asian American community, but not looking white enough to fit in with white people, regardless of being raised in white adjacency. And so I think that just lives with you your entire life. And so growing up, like, learning to embrace that duality of my identity was really difficult, and I didn't have the language or the resources to be able to open up about that. And so that was really difficult.
I was going to go on a tangent about that.
I
won't. But
well, please.
no, it's just, and I don't want to take away from that at all.
Yes.
But we have spoken about identity, Dean and I, about identity.
Crisis.
And I mean, throughout life, trying to find yourself within communities that don't necessarily outwardly reflect who you are, if that makes sense, and just trying to find an anchor point, maybe within yourself, to where you can stand on your own and feel like, regardless of what I go through or what I experience, I will always have a good sense of identity within myself, and then therefore may be able to share myself with my community at large. And so, being people of color, it's never easy to find that sense of identity when you're torn between all these different
Absolutely
worlds, and people telling you how to act, how to behave. You're not this enough because you behave like this, and then vice versa. I mean, it's just another layer of complexity when maybe another subcategory being
exactly.
And so I mean, I think ultimately having compassion, and again having these conversations. Because again, every single time we talk, I feel like I learn more and more, not just about you, but about how to interact with or engage with this particular subject matter, and how we can all open our hearts to just being a little bit more understanding about how to, you know, how to live this life and how to treat people.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I wonder, like, when your parents took you to the Chinese dance and all those things. I wonder, you know, the conversations they were having of, like, because it was more for you to support, you know, you finding yourself more, and even with your sibling. Was it a girl or a brother?
Yeah, I have a brother and a sister.
So the brother is a brother from Korea or sister?
Yes. Yeah, my
Oh
brother.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I wonder how, you know, the conversations in your house and how we were able to connect. Like, how was it with your growing up with your siblings and finding yourselves and coming together? Because even when you are all when you're all same, you know, biological siblings, you
Yes.
still, like, have different needs and wants.
Of course.
And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, yes. So how was it? How was it for you?
I mean, like you said, um all of my siblings and I, like, we were very much like, there was no difference between
Yes.
us at all.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, we were siblings.
Yeah.
And but it was interesting. Like, I was enrolled in Chinese dance and my brother was enrolled in Korean drumming, and my sister felt left out, so my dance troupe let her join our like the Chinese dance troupe
Yes.
because she
Yes.
wanted to do what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that was really special. And I think that I do commend my parents
Yeah.
for giving me and my brother especially that outlet to become connected to our culture, because Chinese dance is very much the way in
Yes.
which I feel connected to my culture today.
Yeah.
And to have that from a young age was
Yeah.
incredibly valuable to
Yeah.
me, just to be able, always be able to go back to that. Just like, I might not have been raised in a Chinese household, but I know this part of my culture so much. And this is my entry point really
Yes.
to learn more about it, is through this art of dance. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure if my brother had the same experience with Korean drumming. I don't think he was
Yes.
as into it as I was. As the Chinese dance is like, okay, cool. Like, our parents want me to do this. And again, like you said, even biological siblings like have their own like
Oh
paths
yes.
and their own wants
Yeah.
and needs. And
Definitely.
so I think we very much behave in that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what happens
That's
with
what
kids.
happens. That's what happens.
Yep.
Yeah. But definitely your parents were very smart to, like, thinking for you. You know. Yeah. So I commend them as well.
Absolutely.
You've been also speaking about this publicly, like about advocacy for adoptees. What places have you spoken at, and what type of responses you get? Like, the most exciting responses you get.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So I've written a lot of articles. And
Yes.
so I feel like, as far as public reception, that's where I get a lot of my public opinion. I've spoken
Yeah.
on many podcasts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I lived in the DC area and before the pandemic,
Yes.
obviously, I was doing a lot of speaking at events and on panels
Yes.
and all of that good stuff.
Yes.
So when I write about my experiences, though, that's when I feel like I get the most individual responses.
Yes.
And I think that I I just really love it when adoptees will reach out to me. And this was in particular in, actually, it was Michelle Madrid. I wrote an article for her platform
Mhm.
and about
Oh.
separation anxiety as an
Yeah.
adoptee. And I received so many wonderful responses from adoptees. And I do love my responses from adoptive parents. Like, it's so rewarding to me when I first shared my journey on Dear Adoption, just about my upbringing, being bullied, finding my identity, coming
Yes.
into my own, and how much farther I still had to go. And I received comments from adoptive parents about how that helped them understand some of the issues their child might be going through, which is, of course, like, wonderful. But I think that it just really touches my heart in a very special way,
Yeah.
in response to that essay on separation anxiety, for adoptees who say, I felt really heard reading this. Just I felt really understood. And that's very much what I want. Is you don't have to agree with everything I say. Like, you're not going to. Everyone has their own experiences and thoughts and opinions. Like, that's not what I want at all. It's very much that I just hope that my perspective broadens understanding, like you were saying, just everyone I talk to can teach me something. And that when adoptees see my words and feel like they're being heard, or that their voice is out there, or that like they have some representation, like that's truly, truly special, and why I do what I do. Absolutely.
That's amazing, because what you do is very special, especially because sometimes we go through things and we think we're the only ones who are going through the hardships or the emotions you're going through, and you just feel like, am I going crazy? Why am I thinking this way? But when you find out there's somebody else who's been through the same thing you're going through and learning how they overcame it or how they're dealing with it, it's a very I think it's a very strong tool to have.
Oh, definitely. And when I was growing up, I just wanted someone to tell me that I wasn't alone, that the things that I was feeling, like you said, they're not crazy, that I had a reason to feel this way. And so often, because as a society, our view of adoption is not as complex as the lived experience actually is. I felt that my feelings were being invalidated so much. Like, you don't have any reason to feel this way. Like, you don't remember your life in China. You don't have any, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why you would feel this way. And there is a reason that I feel this way. Like, and I feel like I just started going to therapy last year because I was so convinced that I was fine and that I had no reason to feel that way. And suppressing those emotions, like I said earlier, it doesn't make them go away. And so I just started seeking help like last year, and learned so much about myself, and felt like a lot of my experiences were very validated, and just like I wasn't alone. And that's just such a huge, powerful message.
Absolutely.
And it's a simple thing, right? Like it's like a simple reminder, because we can all get very wrapped up into our own world and then forget that people care about us. You know, people who we don't even know. Like, so it's a very simple reminder. I'm happy you said that.
Yes.
But so Mary Fuentes 2282 asks you a question here. She says, "Hey Kira, have you ever had anyone open up to you with a bad experience as an adoptee? If so, how did you advise them?" Great question.
Yes, I have.
You have.
I definitely have. And a lot of times I, more often than not, feel myself not giving advice as often as just listening. And I think that can also be just a huge, like, very powerful, because a lot of times adoptees, when they're seeking these online forums, don't have the like real life support from their loved ones who may not understand what they're going through. And so just for someone to like sit and, like, very, very much going back to what we were just talking about, and say, like, I hear you, like, I understand this, like, I didn't live your life, but I lived my life, and we have very parallel experiences, and this is hard, like, this stuff is hard. And I really find that more often than not, if I do give advice, it's very much just like, take care of yourself, like be gentle with yourself, like don't put so much pressure on yourself to have things figured out, because you're going to be figuring things out for your entire life. Everyone is with everyone's experiences. It's a journey.
Yes, it is a journey. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You're gonna say something?
No, it was just that's kind of heartwarming.
Yeah, it is heartwarming. Yeah, be kind to yourself, because that's all you can do. There are things that happen in my community. We always say there are things happen around you. They're happening. You can't stop them. But the way we respond to them, that's the only thing we have control over. We don't have control over how things go around us, but in here, that's the most important part that we can be able to control the response.
Yes.
So I like that you tell them to take care. To take care of themselves. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just scrolling through the comments to see if we have any other missed.
I saw one from Titanium Entertainment, I thought. Hold on.
Sorry, it's just
there's so many.
There's a lot.
Yeah, let's see. Oh wait, that one was with the already 5 stages of grief. Yeah.
I think someone had mentioned that they have a cousin had a cousin who's an adoptee, and I think they followed up with they don't feel as close.
Oh, yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah, there's a comment here. Juliet said something here.
I've learned so much from Kira about the adoptee community, and in particular now it really makes me reevaluate how adoption is portrayed in media, especially in films and TV that only show positive experiences.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Juliet.
That's my best friend.
Oh, she is?
She's so supportive. I love
You have
her.
a very supportive community. I love it.
Yeah, I know. She's great.
Yeah. It's very important. Even when we see things on films and TV, it's important to, when you meet someone who actually have that lived experience, to ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Asking is that never hurts.
Yes.
So if you don't want to assume, you just ask the questions, everything you've been asking yourself, ask and see if they can, somebody like Kira will give you more information.
Yeah, exactly. Be curious.
Be curious, yes. What would be your message to anyone? Something that you live by, something that you would like to see in the world more.
I think that, what I hope to see more in the world of is empathy and just people continue, like we said, be curious rather than judging people. Be curious about their experiences and why they feel the way that they do. I think that when there's more empathy in the world and there's more understanding, we all live richer lives. And just to reiterate what I said before, like every single person that you meet knows something that you don't. So I think that having that open mind to learn from them and to have a deeper understanding for your world is going to help you serve it better and also serve yourself better. It's good for yourself to open your mind to new experiences because, we can live fuller lives and we can love the people around us that much fiercer.
Okay, so what is your advice on adopted children struggling with the personal decision on if they should try to reconnect with their birth parents for closure, if that's an option for them?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question.
Yeah.
It's such a personal decision. And just speaking from my own experience, I've gone back and forth on it so many times where I'm just like, I feel like I should do this, or I don't really want to for my own sake. And so I think that, again, just like it takes time. It's something that I feel like, if you're ready for it, you'll know when you're ready for it. I think that taking the proper amount of time to really think about what that process is going to entail, and if you're able to have the mental and emotional capacity to do it, I think that that's really what the evaluation should be, is what are the possibilities that this could go in? Am I equipped to deal with that right now? Because I know for myself, I'm not in any way able to deal with the emotions that would arise by following that. And so I think that in that case, you just really have to prioritize yourself and your own mental health. And even if you start to go down that path and it starts to become difficult, like just again, like I was saying earlier, the most advice that I give is to take care of yourself. And in every respect, like whether it's like discovering your culture or like exploring the possibility of reconnecting with your birth parents, just like always prioritize yourself. And that decision is one that should not be taken lightly. So totally understand struggling with that, because it's a big decision, but it's also not irreversible. Once you meet them, it's like that's the part that you have to prepare for, and that's the part that is going to have a lasting impact on your life. But choosing to begin the search is not irreversible, is what I should clarify. Once you meet someone, you can't unmeet them.
Yes, you can.
But starting that journey, though, if you feel at any point that it's taking too much of a toll, like you can pause and take a moment for yourself and just reevaluate. Like it's
or talk to someone.
yes, exactly. Like definitely seek the adoption community. I feel like definitely talking to other adoptees who have done this before can really help. There are those resources online and forums and just around the community. There are people who are in reunion with their birth parents. And I think that reading their experiences and seeing what it was like for them and putting yourself in their shoes can really help you understand if you might be ready for that.
Thank you so much. Sharing your wisdom and your
I know.
expertise.
You know,
thank you so much for having me. Oh, I love you both so much too. I'll do anything you all ask me to do. Like I absolutely adore talking to you both, and I learn so much from you both whenever I speak to you. You're both so eloquent and articulate and such strong voices in your own communities and just our global community at large. So I'm just so grateful that we met and that we're able to talk about these things because it's so important.
Yeah. We're stuck with one another.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Kira. So we'll talk soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you everybody in the Base Range community for joining us. Everybody who engaged in the conversation, everybody whose name I mispronounced. Thank you for joining. We will be back for another community conversations Instagram live sometime soon, and we'll have more wonderful guests and more invigorating conversations to dive into.
Absolutely, like Kira said, love one another. Love.